Good morning. I'm gaining time by talking while I'm walking. So welcome to this wonderful panel. I want to very quickly introduce everybody so that we don't lose too much time there. With the ladies, we have two experts in medical, right? Maja is the expert in field medical, all right? And Jennifer is expert, as you've already had her on stage, in strategy. So it's more corporate view and content. And then we have Luca, who joined us, and he only arrived late last night, so you didn't see him yesterday. And as a global consultant, he has the unique view across companies. As for me, I'm just the chief anointment officer here, as you have noticed, asking questions. So one thing that we realized, we prepared. We had phone calls, we had a Google Doc, and we listened to Julia, and we basically canceled it. Because just for your information, we are the fourth panel today with Omnichannel in the title, and the 10th over the 2 days. So we're not going to repeat, but we are going to try and do what Pharma always does, try to deliver differentiating value in too little time. That's the summary. So I'm going to start, the first value is we're going to summarize for those who are asleep or on the terraces, the key messages about Omnichannel in medical that you've heard so far during the meeting. So I'm going to start, who am I going to start with? Oh, Jennifer, what's your key message that you've heard so far in all the sessions on Omnichannel in medical affairs?
So one of the key takeaways I have about Omnichannel in medical is that Omnichannel is a must-have. It's not a nice-to-have, because there's still a little bit of resistance in the medical department saying, is this something that's marketing? Why do we have to do it? There's a little bit of confusion about what is omnichannel. It's a buzzword that's a little bit misunderstood in medical. For me, omnichannel is a means of having impactful stakeholder engagement. So it's very difficult to say, I don't want to do that in medical, because the risk is that if we don't do it, if we don't have impactful stakeholder engagement, all these stakeholders that we're interacting with will say, forget it, I'm not going to work with you. It's confusing, I'm overwhelmed. I prefer to go maybe to Merck, maybe where they're doing it better, and do my collaboration, my research.
We are going to go to Merck.
So it's something that is a must-have, because our KOLs.
We had one sentence.
Our
it's
KOLs won't tolerate it.
Okay, it's a must-have,
Yeah,
and it's a key message. Second key message comes from Maja, indeed from Merck.
One sentence.
Yeah, well, you can do two. She did two.
Okay, so the important aspect is the human, what we heard this morning, human-to-human connection. Like, many of us think about digital because we need some digital and some tools around omnichannel. However, the human is important. The human, in my case, in our case, the MSL, is one channel, yes, but in addition, they have to have the oversight of the whole communications. And at this time, where AI is not that sophisticated, as we just saw 30 minutes ago, they still have to also orchestrate some of the communication channels.
Okay. Luca, what's your takeaway so far?
I think, kind of building up on the human and the must-have piece, right? It's change management. We need to do that constant effort around change management and use the most advanced technique of change management to make sure the change happens. Because that's a must-have.
Okay, so this is our first, thank you very much, our first differentiated value to you. We summarize what the others said. So number one, it's a must-have. Number two, the MSLs are central. Number three, you need change management. Let me add a few from what I wrote down. There's only one omnichannel. That's a takeaway, all right? For MSLs and every field force, relevance beats knowledge. And an important dimension of relevance is timing. And the last one, this is a very personal one. I take full blame for it. I have a feeling that the vendors are not eating their own food, because the way I am engaged as an attendant to this conference has none of the things they sell. But that's a different thing. So we've delivered the value of summary. So now the next value is audience interaction. It's impossible to beat the panel that came 2 panels before. But yet I want to ask you, in the room, other than these 6 key messages on Omnichannel, is there something we have missed? Stunning silence. I take that we did our number one job. So then we will dive into something that has not sufficiently been addressed, and it has been mentioned already. Resistance, change management. And the question I have for my panel is, how do you overcome the resistance that is quite natural and frequent in medical departments, both in headquarters and in the field, against all of this thing, an omnichannel? So who wants to start?
I can give it a go.
All right, you look at it the global perspective.
Yeah. So we need to go a little bit beyond the traditional just communication and emails. I think it's really important to bring all the user, all the organization on that journey. And for me, one technique that has been really effective is around gamification. So trying to gamify the use of additional channel, for example, right? You make it a quest or an adventure somehow. And typically you would have the traditional tool, points, badge, leadership board, right? Those kind of things, just to push your team a little bit further. You can do it at the team level, you can do it at the individual level, or even at the country level, comparing one country versus the other. Those are techniques that are actually working really well. It's proven in other fields than purely in pharma, but it works well.
So it's gamification to reduce the fear for new things. I must add, Luca is also a professor of marketing management, so he knows what he's talking. Ladies, any comment to how to practically overcome in the field and in head office that fear?
Absolutely. So I understand why, especially from a regional and global level, we come with this big buzz, this big change management. I think there's a lot of power in small steps. Just start from where you are with what you have. Because omnichannel is also about seamless communication and connection. And as I just learned on my ride here in the taxi yesterday, there are still companies who are not wanting or capable of, I don't know, to actually inform an MSL if there has been a medical inquiry to MedInfo. So we are not connected. I mean, just by establishing some of those things, connecting communication channels, it's no big buzz, no one is afraid of this, it's just making sense. If you could start with that, we would achieve something without the resistance.
Small steps, gamification, small steps.
Yeah, I have something to share as well. Sometimes when there's resistance when you have this global corporate project being pushed down, and there's some resistance, like, you don't know the job that I do and the challenges that I have. And this is where that kind of peer-to-peer experience comes in. We have one of our countries, Italy, that's starting to implement some of these omni-channel tools and techniques and are starting to see the value of it. So let them peer explain and to showcase the successes, the challenges that they faced, the difficulties that you need to avoid when implementing something, rather than it being preached down from global, but have that peer-to-peer best practice sharing.
All right, so that's very consistent with what we've heard before. The gamification is new, but the small steps and sharing success stories, let the countries sell to each other. Somebody said yesterday, the best way to get Germany to move is that the French are ahead, right? And it's, thank you. But it's true, a healthy competition, and the same also works between department leaders, by the way, all right? So that healthy competition, use it to your advantage. So that was about how to do it. Now, there's another difference between medical and commercial, which we haven't talked, is that in medical, a large chunk of the interaction with the customers is reactive. The essence of commercial is to be proactive, get the message out. But a lot of it's reactive, medical information calls coming in, but also reps asking the MSL to follow it, etc. So I want to focus in on that reactive communication ask, especially the two of you, and then Luca from a global perspective. How do you use new technologies in the reactive part of medical affairs? Do I have to say who starts?
No, it's okay. So I'll start. It's true that in medical, it's difficult to plan a whole journey and be proactive, customer journey. I like to use the word stakeholder instead of customer, because often in medical, your stakeholders are collaborators, researchers, and not really paying customers. But in any case,
Stakeholders.
Stakeholders.
That doesn't help.
Sorry.
It's okay, think about it.
Yeah.
Maja.
No, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
The question was, how do you use it for reactive
Reactive,
comms?
sorry. For the stakeholders being reactive, but you can still plan a journey, but then activate it after it's reactive. So maybe a doctor is asking KOL is asking about a therapeutic area and you're engaging in a call. And then you can activate the journey to say, oh, if you're interested in this topic, there's a webinar that we're planning in 2 weeks. Why don't you join, either as a participant or even as a panelist, because you seem quite knowledgeable on the subject. And then you follow up with an email, follow up with other content. So you can activate the journey once you start the conversation after that reactive discussion.
That's great, because we have not used a lot of the reactive insights. Maja.
And we tend to think about those channels as push information, as you just said, So, but first of all, of course, in medical and also for MSLs, there are things that we can discuss proactively, and we actually should. It's not just reactive. However, there is a lot of information coming in via those channels, and I think that we also want to keep in mind and make use of it. It might not be a complete medical insight, but definitely it's data, and that comes in terms of a request, no matter, physicians, reps. It is all giving us and providing us with information that often enough we have the data, but we're not making use of it. So it doesn't matter if what we are doing is only proactive or reactive, just make the best use of what we have in terms of channels, inbound, outbound. That's a marketing term.
It's very good.
I've learned that somewhere. So make the best use out of it. And then maybe we, like me as medical, we receive more incoming information, but we have to utilize and analyze it to use it for the push information.
This is music to my ears, because don't ever forget that the people who call your medical information in all your countries are your only customers who really want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Everybody is harassed by you. These are people picking up the phone and asking you. So they're extremely valuable. There are no time limits, and they really want to talk to you. So use it. Luca, from a global perspective, what do you say on that?
Well, as you said, right, they really want to talk to you at any time. So that means technology seems like a perfect place to support on that, right? We see typically some interesting use case around scripting the response from a call center, for example, because that's where you can really use GenAI, not to name it, but to just build a script and be more effective, right? It's one thing that you have the key message that you're supposed to say, but if you really have the prompt, or just the prompt that is coming and what is the best response based on the path from that HCP, that could be great, right? So that's where we see a lot of technology, especially around call centers, but then all around automating kind of the FAQ creation, right? The standard response letter as well. That's all places where you can use technology. It's better, it's nice if you're an HCP, you call the call center, and then right after it you get a summary that is automatically pushed to your email. That's a nice feeling, right? Because not only you have the thoughts that you talked about, but you have the reminder. So those are things where you can make a big difference.
So that's really a good example. I mean, please go home and use all these technologies to improve the customer experience from your call centers. And as a user of, like anybody, bank apps, right? We all do. Do not replace it entirely by a chatbot, because that's the last thing the patients and doctors who call you want. But do the augmentation of your call people with all the technology you have. So we addressed the resistance, we addressed the reactive. Those were the two things we came up with. Is there another topic related that you would like us to address in the next few minutes? Trying to get you away. We got one here. Oh man, she can not only dance. Yeah. Give her the mic.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why Dario keeps inviting me to this.
Same for me here.
Thank you. I have a question regarding change. So, yeah.
Change, okay?
No, it's about impact. How you measure the impact of a truly good omnichannel strategy vis-a-vis a not so good omnichannel strategy vis-a-vis with a purely face-to-face. Because we still face this in many countries, and I know what you're bringing is super important, but it does not reflect the reality everywhere. For many of our MSLs in our corporations, face-to-face is still the privileged way to contact. So it's really how can we move this needle by really showcasing the impact of a truly good, personalized omnichannel. I think we are missing this.
So maybe I can comment on
Start
that,
on it.
because this is another misconception that the face-to-face is one of the channels of omnichannel. And for me in medical, this is one of the key pillars, because you have such a small group of experts that you're working with, that you want to maintain that personalization and that face-to-face trusted relationships with those people. But then you can augment it by doing some virtual events, emails, follow-ups to send after an interaction. Here's an infographic that explains, that you can read on your own about what we talked about. So definitely the face-to-face is important, but you need to augment it. And then when you're going to the impact, this is why omnichannel is a must-have, because when you use the omnichannel tools and processes, that's where you can get metrics, and that's where you can measure the impact.
So I agree with that. People always think that omnichannel equals digital, but it's human first and sort of. And I think one of the easiest metrics is to balance, to measure the ratio for your MSLs between in-person contacts and all your other channels. And that's a good way to measure progress on adoption. And you can take, as we said, little stories. If you have one MSL who is actually going very fast, and you can ask them on the MSL meeting to share their example. Maja, you want to answer also the question?
I wonder if I should contradict what you just said.
Oh, then please.
So I think it is important to get the metrics, and we get more metrics. But in order to really understand the impact, we need to go beyond just our activity. And
I agree with that.
we're actually going to discuss this a bit later today, actually at the end, so if you want to stay. But just measuring, I mean, the activity is good in terms of we did what we said we're going to do, right? But we definitely need to move beyond, and we do want to understand which channel is going to be successful or how we connect channels. But we also need to, and the most important thing is to understand if the message that we would like to, transport, is they actually being reaching the right person at the right time.
And I agree with that, and it's a warm call. Stay till the end. Maja's talking about. Luca.
Well, if we want to measure impact, we need to come back to what is the purpose of the medical information, right? And that's what you need to measure, really, regardless of the channel, right? And then you can compare face-to-face only versus omnichannel, right? And first you need to come up with a measure of your spread of medical information, so to speak, right? That's really what you need first to define, and then you can really compare one versus the other.
So I'll add to that and close the loop to the person. Have we answered your question? It's the same with the doctor.
Partially, yes.
Partially, but that's better than. But see, that's the point. You have. That's the point that's made here. Follow up the loop, and that's what Maja said. Have we reached what we said we were going to make? The follow-up call to check whether you actually delivered value. Because if you didn't, that's why I'm asking you, and if we'll take it offline. Anything else? Oh, now we got the audience awake. Ladies first. I'm so sorry you come later. Sorry. Ladies first. Microphone here in the front, second row. Meanwhile, I'll already address my point. I am very deeply frustrated how little we talk about patients. Now, patients in more companies, in 70% of companies, has landed within the medical affairs. So I was going to ask how we use all these technologies to communicate and engage with patients. But your question goes first.
There is every time in pharmaceutical there is a strong reorganization everywhere, every time, and this is a cycle continuously. Today is the digitalization of the pharmaceuticals, and a lot of ESF are moving into medical affairs as MSL. This is the reality in Italy, for example.
Okay.
But in front, if you are wearing the shoes of the customer, how do you manage and how do you think this is perceived by the customer? When you have in front of you someone who has commercial objective in the first step, after the moving, no commercial objective. How is the perception?
There's a great question. Is the question clear?
Not very
Ex-sales reps are moved into MSL roles, correct? Is that what you're saying? Yes. And we've seen that across companies happening as the doors were shutting on marketing, on sales, and there was still a need to engage with the customers, and the MSLs could get in the door. We did see a big move in industry. I'm talking hundreds to thousands of people moving from sales roles into MSLs. How
so
do
many
the customers?
opportunities.
Maja has an opinion. And an
Yes, I have an
experience.
opinion. That's good. I have an opinion. That's good.
It's good.
I have, and I have experience as well. So there's a good and a bad there. I personally do not like so much if they're still seeing the same physicians, because that is confusing for the physician, right? You keep the connection, the relationship, but That is hard to understand for the physician. On the other hand, someone coming from sales, they have like 50% of the prerequisites for an MSL, some more than someone coming right from university. So it's more about helping the person to actually transition to the new role. And some of them are very open and actually find this a lot of fun. Others I've seen, they say, this is so stressful, I'm just going to quit and do something different. And that's fine, right? So change management again. But from an organizational perspective, one thing I personally would appreciate if you're moving them around in terms of not having the same physician to see as versus sales reps and then become an MSL, because I can see that being challenging from a physician's perspective.
That's a great, and I can also add from my experience, and we're going to stop in 2 minutes and 13 because we want time for you guys more. I was on the barricades as head of medical global against that move. But if you summarize it really, first of all, the customer just wants to be helped. If the help is good, who delivers it is just a channel, right? Secondly, if I take a scientist, I need to learn him to communicate, which is often harder than to make a communicator understand the science. Because let's face it, a lot of reps have biomedical backgrounds. So there's no general answer, but if you put the right criteria and the right management, it's a change that is possible. And so I was really on the barricades, but I was talked into it with good arguments, and I became a believer that with the right steps, there's no reason to block this. Does that answer your question? So, okay, so the comment is, yes, she believes that this is an answer, and that's also the reason you need some of these tools to help that, and I love that comment. There was another question way in the back from a gentleman there. And we're not going to do it about AI. We had a whole other 30 minutes planned for you, but go.
Yeah, it's not an AI question. So it was, you started the panel discussion with some of the challenges of medical adopting omnichannel. And one of the big challenges that I see is so it's omnichannel to do what? So the sort of challenge usually is that omnichannel is usually driven by a classic model of selling. And we're all in the position where we ultimately want to sell drugs, but medical is not a selling function. So how are you positioning the to do what for medical in an omnichannel strategy is my question.
All right, I'll let the ladies and Luca go first, and I'll give the UCB experience on that.
I think omnichannel is a tactic as well. So like in any of your planning of your activities, you have to first say, like, what is my objective? What do I want to achieve? And then you use omnichannel to achieve that. So of course in sales, it's very easy. My objective is to increase sales by 20%. But in medical, you can have an objective. We want to increase disease awareness on a therapeutic area by 20% or 50%. And you can most definitely measure that with omnichannel, already doing different medical education activities and then measuring the learnings before and after and then over time. Because after one seminar, it's not going to drastically improve awareness, but if you keep repeating variations of those medical education activities, by the end of the year, you can most definitely show to your management that we have had impact. We've increased, for example, knowledge on therapeutic areas or disease awareness.
Okay, Maja?
And also, you don't have to use all channels with the same content. You just use those channels that fit the purpose. So I can actually feel some pressure in medical that they now have to play all, these channels. I don't see it that way. I'm using the ones that bring benefit to the physician or the patient, and that's it.
Yeah, and I'll go one step further. The what is simple because the customer asks, right? If you think about a medical inquiry, typically you would ask what is the channel, the preferred channel of response. So you have to have a response for all of them. So it's actually easier to justify the one.
Yeah, I would like to add another metric, again, one that I was opposed to in the beginning as head of medical. It's the simple NPS. Why was I opposed to it? Because it had a P for promoter, promotion. I'm like, medical is not going to use an NPS. It's against who we are. We're non-promotional. But it's promoter, not promotion. And so if I can prove that the context of my MSLs have doctors refer our company, our service, our MSLs to their peers, That's the best publicity they have. So it's a very, very simple one. Because in the end, we moved away from knowledge as a surrogate parameter. The old adagio in medical is knowledge drives behavior. If that were true, all of you would have been in bed before 4 o'clock this morning, and you would not have had that 6th glass of alcohol. Knowledge does not drive behavior. So measure behavior, and always realize that knowledge is an intermediate step. It's the old ACCA model, ACA, awareness, comprehension, commitment, action. And you can measure, like you showed yesterday with the metrics, with the little flags, you can measure all of these. Does that answer a little bit your question about the metrics? I see a thumb going up, and we are out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.